Dr. Tessa St. Cyr, Youth Parliament Head Facilitator, Dame Joan Purcell, Joshua Andal, Prime Minister in the Youth Parliamentarians and Member for St. Andrew Northwest, Mr. Jonathan Mitchell, Youth Parliamentarian and Member for St. George South, Ms. Colleen Perryman, Youth Coordinator at the Ministry of Youth and Sports, cohort of the 2026 Youth Parliament Program for the Parish of St. George, invited guests, parents, supporters, and citizens of Grenada. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this afternoon's parish-level Youth Parliament debates for the Parish of St. George. Today marks the culmination of 3 months of dedication, learning, and personal growth. Throughout this program, our participants were engaged in intensive training with particular focus on effective leadership, effective communication, and governance. They have embraced every challenge with enthusiasm, resilience, and a genuine desire to grow as young leaders and to make meaningful contributions to the tri-island states of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and throughout their constituencies. As their facilitator, it has been a privilege to witness their transformation. I have watched them develop greater confidence, sharpen their ability to analyze issues, communicate their ideas with conviction, and work collaboratively with their peers. Their commitment, which entailed training 3 times a week, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., and their perseverance have been truly inspiring, and I could not be proud of what they have accomplished. This debate is more than a competition. It is an opportunity for participants to demonstrate the knowledge, skills, and values they have cultivated over the past 3 months. To all of our participants, I encourage you to speak with confidence, listen with respect, and enjoy this moment. Let this experience be the beginning of an even greater journey of leadership and civic engagement. I wish each of you every success this afternoon, and most importantly, in all your future endeavors. Thank you to everyone who has supported this program and invested in the development of our youth. Your encouragement has made this initiative possible. Thank you, and I wish everyone an enjoyable and engaging debate. Let us pray. Guide, we beseech thee, Almighty God, members of this honorable house, that they may wisely deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of thy holy name. Honorable members, please join with me as we say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray, be seated.
I am advised by the proclamation that the 2026 sitting of the National Youth Parliamentarians of the Parish of St. George, duly appointed, should meet and transact their business in this honorable house on the 22nd day of July, 2026. I am further advised by the proclamation that the affairs of the Youth Parliament will be conducted with wisdom, temper, and prudence, and that upon all sessions, the rights of all citizens and members will be respected and recognized.
Honorable members, I am not unmindful of the honor which you have conferred on me today in electing me to this highest of office, that of your Speaker and your servant. It will be my aim and duty to uphold the principles and tradition of this House to secure for each member the right to express his or her opinions within the limits necessary to preserve the decorum of this House. I pledge to recognize the rights and privileges of the honorable members and the House itself. I also wish to assure you that I will preside in a manner which will facilitate the orderly transaction of debate. And above all, I will seek to be fair and impartial in the decisions, the rules of Parliament, and you yourself entrust to me. This honorable House is now in session.
Announcements by Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, let me now remind you of the rules governing the sitting of this House. Only one member may be standing or speaking at any given time. Members may not read their speeches, but may refer to notes. Members must stand to deliver their speech. Speeches may not contain matters that refer negatively to persons who are not members of the House and who therefore have no opportunity to reply. Be mindful of these rules and other standing orders as we proceed into today's sitting. I remind all strangers in the gallery that they are to remain silent, not show support or opposition for any member of the House, and they are to otherwise conduct themselves in a manner as to not disrupt the proceedings of this House.
Resolutions.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I wish to move for the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Grenada remains committed to the principles of regional integration through its membership in the Caribbean Community and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, both of which promote the progressive facilitation of the free movement of people, skills, goods, and services within the region. And whereas Grenada shares deep historical, ancestral, cultural, and diplomatic ties with countries throughout the Caribbean, Africa, Latin America, European, and other regions, and has an interest in strengthening these relationships. And whereas expanding opportunities for international travel can foster stronger diplomatic relations, increase tourism, increase the population, facilitate trade and investment, promote educational exchange, and encourage innovation and sustainable economic growth. Be it resolved that the government of Grenada develop and implement a national visa facilitation policy aimed at expanding reciprocal visa-free travel arrangements with strategically selected partner countries in Africa, Latin America, and other strategically identified regions that share significant historical, cultural, educational, economic, and diplomatic ties in furtherance of Grenada's national policy objectives. Be it also resolved that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs establish clear criteria for the negotiation of reciprocal visa-free agreements, taking into account national security, immigration management, economic impact, reciprocity, protection of Grenadian citizens abroad, and Grenada's foreign policy priorities. Be it further resolved that all reciprocal visa-free agreements be supported by enhanced immigration screening, intelligence sharing, information exchange, border security cooperation, and law enforcement collaboration to ensure the continued safety and security of Grenada and its citizens.
Honorable members, the question proposed to the Youth Parliament of the Parish of St. George, Grenada is, be it resolved that the government of Grenada develop and implement a visa-free facilitation policy aimed at expanding reciprocal visa-free travel arrangements with strategically selected partner countries in Africa, Latin America, and other identified regions share significant historical, cultural, and educational, economic, and diplomatic ties in furtherance of Grenada's national policy objectives. Be it also resolved that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs establish clear criteria for the negotiation of reciprocal visa-free arrangements, taking into account the national security, immigration, management, economic impact, protection of Grenada's citizens abroad, and Grenada's foreign policy. Be it further resolved, all reciprocal visa-free arrangements be supported by enhanced immigration, screening, intelligence sharing, information exchange, border security, cooperation, and law enforcement collaboration to ensure the continued safety and security of Grenada and its citizens. Honorable Prime Minister.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, to the members on both sides of this honorable house, to the judges, and to you, the strangers in the gallery. Madam Speaker, visas have a remarkable talent. They can make a perfectly innocent traveler feel as though they have committed an offense even before they have packed a suitcase. And why is that, Madam Speaker? Because for many people, this process can be long and expensive, which includes the filling out of forms, gathering the necessary documents, attending interviews, and let's not forget about the exorbitant application fees. Madam Speaker, some people wait for weeks, even months, and after doing everything right, or so they thought, there is still no guarantee of approval. I am here today as the Prime Minister to quell these concerns and to assure this honorable house and the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique that diplomacy has an even greater talent. It transforms trust into opportunity. I am not speaking only for the diplomats in conference room, Madam Speaker. I rise today for the students waiting on an embassy meeting while a scholarship deadline slips away, for the entrepreneur whose next investment is dependent on catching a flight, for our athletes, our Kirani James, our Ian George, our Anderson Peters, Madam Speaker, and for every Grenadian who believes that their passport should represent the opening of doors and not the building of walls. So, as your Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Trade, and Export Development, I rise today in proud and firm support of this resolution. As I said earlier, Madam Speaker, foreign policy is not about shaking hands. It is about creating opportunities for our people right here at home. Because every reciprocal visa, it tells the world that Grenada is confident, Grenada is reliable, and Grenada is well respected. These diplomatic ties can create avenues for trade, tourism, development, diplomacy, and education that in turn benefits every parish, every business, and every family in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. My ministers will rise here today and speak and provide the necessary data that proves to all of us why this resolution will be beneficial to Grenada. Madam Speaker, in St. George Northwest, I have seen the potential of my young people. I have held conversations with them. If anyone here understands the dire need of that agreement, Madam Speaker, it is I. This motion calls for a national policy with clear criteria, equal benefits, and a stronger collaboration between our immigration officers and our law enforcement agencies. Madam Speaker, I like to keep it real. And the economic stakes are very real. Grenada's tourism satellite accounts compiled in 2024 using 2018 economic data contributed a whopping 31% to our GDP. Madam Speaker, I didn't say 5 or 10, 31%. That is too much of an important sector for us to treat as an afterthought. This government stands firmly in support of this resolution for 3 compelling reasons. It advances CARICOM and OECS integration. We are sometimes no more than 25 minutes from our neighboring islands. Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Madam Speaker, it allows for reciprocity to protect our Grenadian citizens abroad pertinent to diaspora affairs. And if social media has taught us anything, it is that influence opens doors, and the same goes for diplomacy. So let's get into the meat of the matter, Madam Speaker, shall we? This resolution places our Grenadian citizens right where they belong, and that is at the center of every Grenadian foreign policy. This concept of expanding our access to borders is not new. Regional mobility is already a recognized part of Caribbean integration. The revised Treaty of Chaguaramas addresses movement of Caribbean community nationals, while the revised Treaty of Basseterre established the OECS Economic Union and provides a deeper framework for free movement within participating OECS countries. Madam Speaker, Grenada is not beginning from a place of total isolation. We are already participating in regional systems that recognize the value of movement. This resolution extends the principle of managed mobility beyond the immediate region, but it does so through bilateral reciprocity and careful selection. So I ask the enemies of progress this. My apologies, Madam Speaker, the opposition. If we have already pledged to ourselves to regional integration, why should Grenada now hesitate to honor that commitment? Today, this government chooses to honor both the letter and the spirit of the revised treaty by building a Caribbean that is more united than the one we inherited. Permit me to address another important aspect of this resolution. Reciprocity does not mean we are handing out favors like carnival flyers. No offense to the promoters. If another country wants easier access to our shores, Grenadians must receive a meaningful and practical benefit in return. There must be a mutual exchange of access between sovereign states. A visa-free policy plan would allow Grenada to assess each partner according to educational value and cultural connections. In simpler terms, Grenadians must get something real. Let's take, for example, Grenada and Ghana. We share a history rooted in culture and heritage. Think about the drums we hear at Spice Mass, our very own Tivoli drummers, the jab jab. And with emancipation just next week, Saturday, that only reaffirms our sense of community and the many African legacy that we share. My final point, Madam Speaker, I'll hurry it up. It is that easier lawful travel can strengthen Grenada's regional and international influence. Madam Speaker, a content creator with millions of followers can influence how people think, where they travel, what they buy. And why do you think? Because influence creates trust, and trust influences decisions. A country's foreign policy is its voice to the world. This resolution gives my team and I the great responsibility to negotiate reciprocal visa-free agreements that aligns with Grenada's foreign policy objectives while protecting our national interest and economic impact. And let me be absolutely clear, Madam Speaker, visa-free travel does not guarantee entry. If an agreement fails Grenada, we amend it. If risk increases, we suspend it. If our national interest demands termination, we terminate it, Madam Speaker. That is not a loss of governance. That is Grenada's trusted political team exercising sovereignty with both eyes wide open. Madam Speaker, we are opening the right doors while keeping the keys firmly in Grenadians' hands. And to those who believe that the safest policy is to simply do nothing, I'm speaking to the opposition, may I remind them that doing nothing has never educated a student. Doing nothing has never secured a business deal. And doing nothing, Madam Speaker, has never built a nation. We have not been elected to do nothing, Madam Speaker. If that was our manifesto, then we may have well joined the opposition. I mean, Grenada must be careful. Yes, that is a fact. But Grenada must also be confident. I refuse to accept that a Grenadian passport should represent limitation when it has every potential to represent possibility and endless options, Madam Speaker. It is for those reasons that I stand here in proud support as Prime Minister for this resolution. And I urge every member in this honorable house, in good conscience, to think about Grenada's future. And if that is too much to ask, think about your family's future and support my team and I in this resolution as we build, advance, and aspire as one people. I thank you.
At this moment, we pause to recognize Ms. Carleen Perriman, Youth Coordinator, and Dr. Tessa Sincere, sitting as strangers in the gallery. Honorable Minister for St. John.
Madam Speaker, good evening. I rise today as Minister of Tourism, Creative Economy, and Culture to second this motion by proving that reciprocal visa-free travel can strengthen my industry. Madam Speaker, here are two remarkable tourist achievements for 2026 reported by the Grenada Tourism Authority. Did you know that Grenada was named #2 best island in the Caribbean? Additionally, did you know that we recorded a 14.2% increase in visitor arrival? Madam Speaker, let me reiterate this for you. We have a population of about 125,000, yet we were named #2. Madam Speaker, if I were keeping track, Grenada is winning. So why should we stop now? When a country is winning, it does not stop to observe the scoreboard. It continues to build on that momentum. This is exactly what this resolution allows, Madam Speaker, because the world is knocking on Grenada's doors. The only question before this honorable house is, will we answer? Madam Speaker, this leads me to my first point, making accessibility our competitive advantage. And you may ask, what does this mean? This means that every additional visa requirement creates friction for our travelers. When travelers compare similar destinations, accessibility often decides where they go. Madam Speaker, we have already seen this internationally. Recently, Spain granted visa-free access to 9 CARICOM states, Madam Speaker, our Grenada being one of them. Madam Speaker, permission to quote throughout my speech?
Permission granted.
Thank you. According to Spain's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, open quotes, it was to increase tourism, facilitate business growth, and strengthen diplomatic relationships. End quote, Madam Speaker. This is exactly the kind of tourism sector we want, Madam Speaker, one that's regenerative and competing globally, Madam Speaker. Now, I know the opposition will come with the same old questions. Can we manage these systems? Madam Speaker, the answer is yes. Since 2018, Grenada strengthened its border security by introducing biometric machine e-readable passports at our borders. Madam Speaker, the same opposition members use these, you know. No, Madam Speaker, visa-free does not mean border-free. And what happens when these barriers are reduced, Madam Speaker? Opportunities follow. Grenada experienced this in July 2025 when we hosted the African Import-Export Investment Forum. We welcomed 2,000 high-spending business delegates. We saw increase in MICE tourism almost instantly, MICE being meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. The Grenada Tourism Authority reported almost a double-digit growth, Madam Speaker. This is the power of accessibility. No, Madam Speaker, to my creative economy, this government takes our creatives very, very seriously. According to the UN Trade and Development, open quotes, the creative economy is one of the fastest growing in the world, accounting to not 20, not 30, but 50 million jobs worldwide, end quotes. So why not tap into this industry? Look at the global success of Afrobeats and the film industry, Madam Speaker. Imagine a Jab King featuring Burna Boy. Madam Speaker, I could dance in this honorable house, but sadly, I'm not a dancer. Madam Speaker, imagine the film exchanges, our local gems getting the chance to go overseas and film. Madam Speaker, do you see the domino effect here? More jobs, more investments. So to vote against this resolution is to tell every young entrepreneur like Sabrina Phillip, a young crochet designer, and every artist like Snakey, that Grenada is content with standing still while the world moves forward. But Madam Speaker, we are in charge of this ship, and we will put our creatives first. So Madam Speaker, I want to save the opposition a lot of time. They will tell this house, Grenada is too small. They will point to Spice Mass. They will say our hotels are already filled. But respectfully, Madam Speaker, they confuse capacity with seasonality. They see Spice Mass and think every month is like this. We are not trying to squeeze 20,000 visitors into Carnival Tuesday. We are trying to spread these visitors through the calendar, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, we are not going to choose fair over facts. We are not going to close doors. The world is already opening for the world of Grenada. Madam Speaker, let us not sit still.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Permit me 1 minute to wrap up, please.
Permission granted.
Let us not sit still, Madam Speaker. As Jab King said, you can't sit in the mass band, Yeah, to be fit, Madam Speaker, let we go. And as I said in the beginning of this speech, Madam Speaker, the world is knocking on Grenada's door. The only question before this honorable house is, will we answer?
Opposition leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to quote throughout my speech, please.
Permission granted.
Thank you. I must say it is a pleasure to stand here as leader of the opposition, representing the people of not only my constituency, but the people of Grenada, Petite Martinique, and Carriacou. As I sat here, I listened to the contributions of the Honorable Prime Minister and leader of government business. what they presented seemed quite appealing. But if I was born yesterday, I would have believed every single word spoken. But I must commend their ability to take nonsense and wrap it up into something like a gift. But when it comes to this resolution, I'm going to make one point clear. The opposition is not against nation development. After all, we are all Grenadians. We want what's best for our country. So we have no issue with the destination. The disagreement comes with a route to get to that destination, which involves expanding reciprocal visa-free agreements. The resolution asks Parliament to support policies that would expand these agreements with strategically selected countries. The government is trying to tell us that this will strengthen diplomacy, increase tourism, encourage investments, which will lead to economic growth. But these are just pie-in-the-sky policies because it lacks the economic justification, and most importantly, there are flaws when it comes to implementation. Policy must not be built on optimism. Visa liberalization is not a magic solution to economic development. The relationship between visa policy and economic growth is complex. For example, looking at different components of gross domestic product, foreign investment, it depends on political stability, investor confidence, legal certainty, access to markets. If you are looking at trade, it may depend on capacity, logistics, competitiveness, and international demand. Visa policy may contribute to it, but it's only a small component to a larger economic picture that the government doesn't even have. So let us look at tourism revenue. Grenada currently has over 70 reciprocal visa-free agreements. Yet the majority of our visitors come from only 3 main countries: the United States of America, which is approximately 45%, the United Kingdom, approximately 20%, Canada, approximately 16%. Visitors from the US and Canada do not need a visa to come to Grenada, but we need a visa to go to their countries. So there are still no major reciprocal agreements within these countries when it comes to visitor visas. However, they still contribute significantly to our tourism. So the point I'm making is that, before I get to that point, over 70 reciprocal visa-free agreements. Our passports would rank roughly 35th in the world, but Grenada ranks outside the top 100 when it comes to tourism revenue. Therefore, the point is clear. There is no clear relationship between the number of reciprocal agreements and tourism revenue. My second concern comes down to the implementation. Well, so let us assume for the sake of the argument that arrivals increase. But is Grenada prepared for the increase? And that is a valid question. The Honorable Minister for Tourism may say otherwise, but it is valid. An increase in travelers requires work to be done beforehand. Otherwise, our systems will collapse. So even if we have introduced, as a country, introduced the biometric system, I travel, and sometimes it's not enough to, there's still a backlog of people there. So it's still not enough. In addition, greater investments will be needed in immigration facilities, especially staffing. Would such implementation fall within the Fiscal Resilience Act, which says that wages cannot exceed 13% of our nominal gross domestic product? And speaking on the matter of money, I remember a few weeks back at our weekly meetings, one of the government members would have stated, and I quote, "Money, money, money. Why is it always about money?" It is not always about money, I would say that. But it's about common sense, Madam Speaker. Responsible governments must consider the process rather than just jump into an end goal. Policies have costs. Ignoring these costs does not make them disappear. Otherwise, it's like adding 2 plus 2 and somehow you get 9. In addition, the resolution proposes some level of change to our visa policy. So the implementation of the visa facilitation policy aimed at expanding reciprocal visa travel arrangements. Madam Speaker, a magic wand was not waved and boom, travel restrictions appear out of nowhere. No, 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 no. They were established after considering immigration control, national security, foreign policy. If those restrictions are now to be relaxed for certain countries, I think that Parliament deserves an understanding as to what has changed now compared to when those visa restrictions were put in place. So I have the following questions. Has the government conducted a comprehensive national security assessment? Has an immigration risk assessment been completed? Has there been an analysis of potential overstays? Has the government even evaluated the possible impact on law enforcement and border management? Instead, the resolution simply refers to strategically selected countries. Now, what contributes to strategically selected countries? We have no idea. The Honorable Prime Minister mentioned some CARICOM countries like Guyana, but we already have the border-free travel with them through CARICOM. The point I'm making is that they fail to highlight a country because the resolution speaks about expanding it, the expanding visa-free, expanding reciprocal agreements, not working on those that already exist. So will countries be selected because of trade, tourism, historical ties, educational partnerships, diplomatic relations? Who knows? Because what may work for tourism purposes, it may not be in our best diplomatic interests. What may be an investment potential, it still may not work out for our best diplomatic interests. So Parliament is effectively being asked to approve a policy without knowing what countries. The opposition cannot support such legislation based on uncertainty. So before the opposition policies cannot be built upon assumptions. Rather, it has to be built on evidence. So we therefore propose the follow responsible approach. Before entering into any new reciprocal visa-free agreements, the government should first establish a transparent assessment framework. Every proposed agreement should be accompanied with an economic impact assessment, a national security assessment, and consultations with relevant stakeholders. Parliament should then be presented with the findings before any agreement is finalized. Furthermore, Grenada should prioritize negotiating reciprocal visa agreements with countries that present clear strategic value, such as with those with strong tourism potential or significant trade opportunities, rather than just doing reciprocal agreements for reciprocal agreements' sake. The government should focus on strengthening the fundamentals that actually drive tourism, improving tourism infrastructure, expanding airlift, supporting destination marketing, and enhancing visitor experience. These are what our taxpayers' dollars should be going towards. After all, people do not choose Grenada because they don't need a visa to come here. No, they choose Grenada because of the destination. They said the destination is worth visiting. So as I conclude, I will state that good intentions may not necessarily mean good governance. For those reasons, Madam Speaker, the opposition cannot support this resolution in its current form unless certain changes have been made and our concerns have been answered. Ensure the economic makes sense. Ensure the financing makes sense. The implementation makes sense. The long-term strategy makes sense. Get the evidence to make the policy and not make the policy, then get the evidence. If not, we urge the government to return to this honorable house with the necessary research, evidence, implementation plan, and justification that such an important national policy deserves. Only then can Parliament make a decision, not based on assumptions, but on actual evidence. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Youth Parliamentarian for Carriacou and PT Martinique.
Good afternoon, Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, honorable members, strangers in the gallery. Close your eyes and imagine this. It is the FIFA World Cup final. The stadium is alive. More than 80,000 supporters are on the feet. Flags wave through the air. The roar of the crowd shakes the ground beneath your feet. Millions more are watching from every single corner of the globe. A young Grenadian standing in the tunnel. Their heart is pounding, their palms are shaking, every sacrifice flashes before their eyes. The early mornings, the blisters, the injuries, the setbacks, the countless hours spent chasing a dream. A steward walks up to them, not to wish them luck, not to hand them their jersey, but to say 4 words. You cannot play today. Not because he's not talented, not because he's unprepared, but because a visa was delayed. Madam Speaker, this may sound like fiction, but around the world, talented young people have missed valuable opportunities because travel and visa requirements created barriers they could not overcome. As Minister of Youth and Sports, I believe our policies should help young people reach their full potential, rather than create unnecessary obstacles. That is why I strongly support the resolution on reciprocal free visa travel agreements. Madam Speaker, this debate is about more than visas. It is about dreams. It is about opportunities. It's about the multiple ways this resolution could transform the youth of Grenada. It creates greater opportunities in sports and education. Did you know, earlier this year, several athletes selected to represent Grenada at the NACA Championship in Mexico were unable to travel because of visa challenges and related logistical difficulties? These were young athletes who had trained tirelessly, earned the honor of representing their country, and were ready to compete internationally. Yet, the opportunity was lost because of administrative barriers. It is sad to imagine how many dreams have been killed before even reaching the airport. The importance of access extends beyond sports. According to UNESCO, more than 7 million students worldwide pursue higher education outside of their home countries, demonstrating the value of international education in today's world. Through study abroad, internships, exchange programs, and professional training, young people gain skills that benefit both them and their communities. Reciprocal visa-free travel can make these opportunities more accessible to young Grenadians, allowing them to gain valuable experience and return home with new knowledge and the ideas that contribute to our country's development. Nearly half of Grenadians' population is under the age of 35. That is half our nation waiting for us to decide whether we believe in them, whether we are willing to trust them, whether we are brave enough to give them a passport that opens doors instead of shutting them locked. Reciprocal visa travel helps develop confident young leaders who proudly represent Grenada abroad. Whether they compete in sports, attend conferences, study overseas, or participate in youth exchanges, they represent Grenada wherever they go. When they return, they may bring broader perspectives, stronger skills, and valuable experience that benefit both their communities and inspire others. Like a boomerang, every opportunity we send out in the world has the power of coming back stronger than when it left. Some may argue that easier travel will encourage our brightest young people to leave permanently. I strongly disagree. Madam Speaker, reciprocal visa-free travel is not about encouraging our young people to leave. It's about giving them greater opportunity to grow and making it easier for them to build a stronger future for themselves and for Grenada. Let us trust them. Let us believe in them. Let history remember that Grenada chose to remove barriers and create greater opportunities for the youth. Because somewhere in Grenada, there's a young boy kicking a football with dreams of representing his country. Somewhere, there's a young girl studying late into the night, believing that education will change their future. Let us ensure that when their moment arrives, the only challenge they face is the one they have been prepared to overcome. I urge every honorable member of this House to stand with our youth, stand with opportunity and support this resolution. Thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. Andrews Southeast.
Madam Speaker, permission to use colloquial language and quote throughout my speech.
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, I rise as a representative for St. Andrews Southeast and in opposition for the motion before us today. Madam Speaker, this motion is not just a simple matter to decide on. It is a pivotal moment in Grenadian history that can either make or break our nation as of now. Madam Speaker, as our revolutionary Moorish bishop once said, forward ever, backwards never. End of quote. Madam Speaker, and this slogan represents resilience and growth. So my question stands. How will this motion move our youth forward? How will the average youth benefit from this visa-free, reciprocal visa-free access? Granting visa-free access can never reach its full potential if you're going to lose our athletes, our young entrepreneurs and excellence, and shove other members of youth in a competitive workforce. Madam Speaker, before we open visa-free access, we must ask ourselves a simple question. Are we prepared to manage the challenges we are already facing? Our nation's youth continue to struggle with serious social issues. According to Dr. Justin C. Pierre, and I quote, Grenada is rapidly becoming the gambling capital of the OECS. And recent research shows that 53% of our youth are exposed to gambling. End of quote. Madam Speaker, these statistics should concern every member of this House. And at the same time, Grenada has seen a growing concern over sexually transmitted infections, and recent public reports highlight a significant number of these cases. And you may be asking, where's she going with this? There are real challenges that are already being faced by our youth and public health sector. My argument is not that visa-free access can cause these problems. Rather, before expanding international mobility, the government must demonstrate that Grenadians has the capacity to address the social and public health concerns affecting our young people. Madam Speaker, I can confidently say that each and every one of these people in this place can confidently say that they know at least one person who has traveled overseas, never to come back again, outside of vacation, of course. Why is this? Because there are better opportunities elsewhere. And honestly, I might just have to give the government my glass since they failed to acknowledge these issues and strengthen this motion's foundation before expanding. Madam Speaker, Grenada has produced worldwide athletes who are proudly representing our nation and immigration international stage. But we must ask ourselves, what are we offering the next generation? Yes, we have the Kairani James Athletic Stadium, Carifta, Intercom, but what about the swimmers, or volleyball players, or football players? Do we have the facilities, coaching, and science expertise in order to support this potential? My fear is not that they will travel. My fear is that they might not ever consider to come back. Madam Speaker, I'm not saying that our nation's youth lack potential, because as seen, this year, 812 students graduated from TAMCC, many others from NULO, and as seen in the Grenada National Youth Awards, we have no shortage of excellence. But first, let us address these challenges. As Sankara said, and I quote, "We must dare to invent a future," end of quote. A future where youth no longer need to move away just to reach their full potential. Madam Speaker, before we decide to make diplomatic connections, let us first connect the gaps in between this motion. Madam Speaker, permission, can you give me 1 more minute to wrap up my speech?
Permission granted.
Let us make sure that our youths are ready to walk through their door and have a reason to come back. Madam Speaker, development is not just about economic growth. It is about building a society where every individual has a chance to thrive. I thank you.
She going next? Youth Parliamentarian for St. George South.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, persons viewing in the gallery, good afternoon. Madam Speaker, I rise today as the Minister for National Security in full support of this resolution. Many people hear the words visa-free travel and immediately think less security. As the minister responsible for national security, I see exactly the opposite. Security is not measured by how many visas we issue. It is measured by how effectively we identify threats. Modern national security is not about building higher walls. It's about building smarter borders. Madam Speaker, do you know the greatest threats facing Grenada today? They are transnational crimes, drug trafficking, human trafficking, cybercrime, money laundering, illegal firearm trafficking. These crimes do not respect borders, and they cannot be defeated by an outdated immigration system operating in isolation. The criminal networks do not have any 8-to-4 jobs, you know. They cooperate across borders every day. Our law enforcement must be empowered to do the same. This resolution does not weaken Grenada's security. It modernizes it. Madam Speaker, this takes me to my first point. Visa-free travel does not mean security-free travel. Visitors must still present valid travel documents, complete any required electronic travel authorization where applicable, undergo immigration inspections, meet all legal entry requirements, and our immigration officers, will retain full authority to deny entry whenever national security or public safety is at risk. This resolution clearly states that it supports enhanced immigration screening, intelligence sharing, border security cooperation, and law enforcement collaboration. These are some of the strongest tools available to modern governments. This government understands that systems are only as effective as the persons who operate them. That is why this government will continue to strengthen our local capacity by providing advanced security training for the Royal Grenada Police Force and international training opportunities for the immigration officers to effectively manage modern border security systems. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes estimates that transnational organized crimes generates over 870 billion annually. Yes, billion annually, while the Caribbean remains a major transit route for narcotics. Madam Speaker, this says that our security challenges are international and our responses must be as well. Madam Speaker, just imagine a well-known criminal attempts to enter Grenada. Intelligence shared by partner countries allows our officers to identify that threat before arrival. And with that, entry can and would be denied before that threat reaches to our communities. A visa is simply a document. Intelligence is protection. This leads me to my second point. Strong security partnerships protects Grenadians at home and abroad. Madam Speaker, if there is one word the opposition should leave with this chamber remembering today, it is reciprocal. Reciprocal. This is not a one-sided agreement. It is a partnership that strengthens our international relationships while delivering equal benefits to the people of Grenada. Honorable members, what if a Grenadian travels abroad, loses a passport, becomes a victim to human trafficking, or is affected by a natural disaster? What's next? What is the bright idea the opposition on the other side has for this? What they fail to realize is that strong diplomatic security partnerships improve communication and emergency response. The partnerships we build before emergencies often determine how effectively we respond during them. These agreements help build safer nations. Madam Speaker, this governing body understands that responsible governments do not choose between security and opportunity. We secure the opportunity. Security and openness are not enemies. They are partners. And I leave this honorable house with one final thought today. The strongest borders are not the highest walls. They are the smartest systems. Madam Speaker, permission, can I kindly have 1 minute to wrap up my speech, please?
Permission granted.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, we must also remember to not confuse the noise of the ignorance with the silence of the wise. True leadership is not guided by fear, misinformation, or empty criticism, but by careful judgment, evidence, and the responsibility to protect the people we serve. For these reasons, Madam Speaker, I proudly support this resolution and urge every honorable member of this House to vote in favor. Thank you. Oh, this was nice to get over this.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. Patrick's West.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, pleasant evening. Imagine you have been invited to the biggest event of the year. Excitement is high, everyone is talking about it, and you prepare yourself. But when you arrive, there is no food, there is no water, and nothing is prepared. Madam Speaker, this is exactly what this resolution is doing. Inviting the world before first preparing the experience it is promising. As representative of St. George's Northwest, I support tourism growth, I support international partnership, and I support reciprocal visa-free travel, but only as a stronger strategy for tourism. Today, I present 3 simple points. Firstly, the government has the right goal, but the wrong priority. Think about the last time you planned to travel. Do you first think, which country has the easiest visa? No, you ask, is Grenada safe? Things to do in Grenada. Is Grenada affordable? Hotels in Grenada. Only after deciding a destination do you really check a visa requirement. Now this says something very important. If visa-free travel removes an administrative barrier, it does not create a desire. Evidence proves this. According to Grenada Tourism Authority, Grenada has recorded 26 months of consecutive tourism growth. In 2024, we welcome over 525,000 visitors. Madam Speaker, a strong tourism product also means getting the basic right. Better roads to our attraction sites,
better facilities, and more modern amenities. Madam Speaker, there is tourism site that still don't have proper Wi-Fi. This is why the government should prioritize and focus on destination marketing, customer service, and authentic Grenadian services. This is what creates a demand. Secondly, tourism growth must protect our reputation, security, and national interests. The resolution asks us to open our doors, yet the house inside is unfurnished. Madam Speaker, tourism is one of Grenada's most important industries, supporting thousands of jobs and livelihood. Yet the government leaves questions to be asked. You say you have systems ready, but is the system that is always temporary down? That's what ready? Is our infrastructure, can our infrastructure maintain the visitor's experience? Do our laws adequately protect Grenadians, visitors, and national interests? I don't think so. Madam Speaker, I am deeply concerned. One security failure, one criminal accident can destroy or threaten Grenada's reputation and public safety around the world. Additionally, as tourism continues to grow without protecting culture, our creative economy begins to lose its voice. Artists performs what sells. Our tradition just becomes attraction instead of our heritage. Madam Speaker, imagine if our national dish changes so much to suit visitors that we can no longer call it oil down, maybe super macaroni. Madam Speaker, we should never open our doors to a house that is not yet fully prepared. Thirdly, tourism success must be determined by Grenadian success. If this resolution were to pass today, Grenadians will be asking, how is this going to benefit me? The government speak proudly about increase in visitors and foreign investors. But it begs to ask the question, how will the average Grenadians benefit? Success is when the average Grenadians can earn more, when their quality of life can improve. Will our local farmers secure more contracts? Will our market vendors sell more? Will our local artists gain more opportunities? Or will visa-free access simply become another concession that makes it easier for foreign investors to profit while Grenadians remain on the sidelines? Tourism growth is just not about increasing visitors and investors. It's about strengthening Grenada for Grenadians. Madam Speaker, permission for 30 seconds.
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, let me be absolutely clear. The opposition is not enemies to reciprocal visa-free access. We are opposing the order in which this government is seeking to implement it. Let us first strengthen our tourism product. Let us also understand that every Grenadian must benefit. Permission to quote.
Permission granted.
Benjamin Franklin wisely said, open quote, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. Mark.
Madam Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, distinguished guests, good evening. I rise today as the Minister for Health and the representative of St. Mark's in strong support of this resolution. Reciprocal visa-free does not weaken Grenada's borders. It removes the unnecessary administrative barrier that, while maintaining the public health regulations, our national security, and creating great opportunities for international collaboration. Firstly, public health and emergency preparedness. Madam Speaker, do you believe that a seatbelt prevents a car accident from happening? It simply does not. A seatbelt reduces harm when an accident occurs. It does not stop diseases from crossing borders. The true precautions are strong surveillance systems, rapid public health responses, and effective screening measures at our ports of entry. This approach aligns with the World Health Organization's international regulations, which guide 196 countries, including Grenada. These regulations emphasize strengthening healthcare capacity, preparedness, and international collaboration to respond to public health threats. Reciprocal visa-free agreements strengthen cooperation between trusted partner countries. And when emergencies happen, speed matters. During pandemics, outbreaks, hurricanes, and other national disasters, unnecessary barriers allow healthcare professionals, emergency medical teams, and humanitarian assistance to reach affected communities more promptly. As the representative for St. Mark's, I understand how vital rapid emergency response is during times of crisis. When people need help, every minute counts. This resolution strengthens our preparedness while protecting the health of our people. Secondly, healthcare workforce and capacity building. Madam Speaker, let's clear up a common misconception. Reciprocal visa-free travel does not automatically create more healthcare workers, if only it were that simple. What it does do is create opportunities. Healthcare professionals can exchange knowledge and collaborate. The World Health Organization recognizes that many small island developing states, like Grenada, face shortages of specialist services and limited opportunities for specialist training. Therefore, partnerships and knowledge exchange are important in addressing these challenges. It allows doctors, surgeons, nurses, specialists, and other allied health professionals to participate in conferences and workshops, exchange programs, and specialist training. Through these opportunities, Grenadian healthcare professionals gain exposure to advanced clinical skills and evolving treatments. Since these are only temporary and not permanent relocation, our healthcare workers return home. They come home equipped with knowledge, they come home with practical experience and internationally best recognized practices. They apply these skills in our healthcare system and cause a ripple effect. And that is how one person's learning can benefit an entire healthcare system. Trusted international specialists also visit Grenada for medical missions, specialist clinics, teaching programs, clinical mentoring, and short-term contracts. But allow me to emphasize one point. They do not replace Grenadian healthcare workers. They strengthen them. They transfer knowledge, demonstrate new techniques, and support the development of Finally, research, healthcare modernization, and innovation. Madam Speaker, this resolution prepares Grenada's healthcare system for the future. Now let's be realistic. It will not modernize our healthcare system overnight, but what it does do is make international collaboration more accessible. Healthcare professionals will be able to engage in medical research, clinical studies, scientific partnerships, and international conferences. Healthcare research improves patient outcomes. Healthcare around the world is rapidly evolving through artificial intelligence, digital health systems, telemedicine, and advanced diagnostic technologies. Will Grenada adopt every innovation tomorrow? Absolutely not. But that is not the point. The point is that knowledge comes before implementation. Our healthcare professionals must understand these technologies, their benefits, and their limitations. Grant me 1 minute, please, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Our healthcare professionals must understand these technologies, their benefits, and their limitations, so that when Grenada is ready to adopt them, we are ready too. Healthcare is a practical profession, and that is why virtual learning is valuable. But some things cannot be learned through the screen because it requires hands-on clinical training, surgical observation, simulations, and direct clinical mentoring under supervision. Madam Speaker, this resolution protects our people today, develops our healthcare workforce over time, and equips Grenada for the future. For these reasons, I proudly support this resolution, and I encourage all honorable members to do the same. I thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. George Southeast.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, strangers in the gallery, good afternoon. The government presents its resolution as though visa-free access is simply about stamping passports. But this debate is not about convenience, it is about consequences. As member of the constituency of St. George's Southeast, I must ask one simple question. What is the purpose of opening up Grenada's borders without first ensuring that Grenada is a place worthwhile to stay? Madam Speaker, let's consider education. Education is not just about opportunities, but it's about ensuring that these opportunities strengthen our nation and not weaken it. Madam Speaker, I feel as though the government is trying to build a highway out of Grenada without first ensuring a foundation beneath our feet is set. And for that reason, I have to oppose this resolution. Now, the government argued that this resolution would not bring brain drain, but it will bring brain gain. But brain gain only occurs when skilled people leave, acquire knowledge, and then return, Madam Speaker, to strengthen their country. Now, this is ideal, but unfortunately, it is not the reality. Let's consider SGU, our university internationally recognized for producing highly trained medical professionals. Yet, Grenada still experiences shortages with doctors in our own healthcare system. And let's look at our veterinary medicine. Just this year alone, the GSPCA was temporarily closed because it struggled to find a veterinarian. Madam Speaker, how is this possible? How can a country that produces highly trained individuals, yet we still struggle to fill critical positions at home? Madam Speaker, the answer is simple. Many of our graduates leave. They leave to pursue better opportunities overseas, opportunities where they offer higher salaries and stronger career prospects. My concern is, Madam Speaker, that the government's strategies to fix this problem is to export Grenada's potential. Instead of making Grenada a place where our graduates want to stay, Madam Speaker, they are making it a place where we would want to leave. Now, Madam Speaker, they may respond by saying, they would introduce policies to ensure our graduates come back. But we have heard those stories before. Let's look at our government scholarship programs. Students who receive government scholarships are required to sign a bond committing them to return and serve Grenada for a specific period of time. On paper, Madam Speaker, excellent idea. But in reality, it does not happen. Our graduates return only to be told there are no jobs in their field. No, Madam Speaker. How can we expect our young professionals to honor their commitment when the opportunities simply do not exist? If we cannot effectively retain the government we already have, Madam Speaker, why should we believe that this policy will be any different? Madam Speaker, Grenadian taxpayers should not fund the education of skilled professionals only for wealthier nations to reap the benefits. Madam Speaker, I don't care what the government say, this is not brain gain, this is brain drain. Madam Speaker, this resolution speaks a lot about reciprocal agreements. But reciprocity means that both sides benefit. And the uncomfortable truth is Grenada is not negotiating from a place of equal capacity. Our education system is already under pressure. Yet the government wants us to believe that we are ready to expand education cooperation. Madam Speaker, cooperation requires capacity. If we are already struggling to meet the needs of our own education system, how can we realistically expect to benefit from those expanded agreements? Now, the government may argue that this initiative will not just bring students, but it will bring new teachers. But, Madam Speaker, how are we going to pay these teachers? Are we going to pay them in sand and seawater? Because, Madam Speaker, year after year after year, we have seen our teachers standing outside their classrooms, not because they do not like their profession, but because they are fighting for the salaries and benefits they have already earned. Our teachers themselves are telling us that we are struggling to meet their needs. So we cannot adequately meet the needs of the teachers we already have. What makes the government believe that this policy would be any different? What makes the government believe that we are ready to expand and take in new students? Teachers deserve a government that will invest in them before making promises abroad. So, teacher, otherwise, Madam Speaker, instead of seeing those teachers, Madam Speaker, can I have 1 more minute?
Permission granted.
Otherwise, Madam Speaker, instead of seeing those teachers sitting in our classroom, we might very well see them standing outside the ministry with placards and drums, demanding the very benefits they should already have. Madam Speaker, responsibility is not just about opening doors. It is about having something of equal value. Right now, our education system should not be open to invitations, Madam Speaker. Our education should be invested in. And for those reasons, I respectfully oppose this resolution. I thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. David.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of this motion, not just because as I am the Minister of Infrastructure, Public Utilities, Transport and Civil Aviation, I understand that connectivity is one of Grenada's greatest assets. Every road we rehabilitate, every airport we improve, every tourism site we develop is designed with one purpose: to connect Grenada to opportunity. Madam Speaker, visa-free access to Africa, Latin America, South America, Europe, and the Caribbean is not simply about making travel easier. It makes Grenada more competitive and better positioned for sustainable economic growth. Madam Speaker, the International Monetary Fund, in its 2025 article, Section 4 consultation, projects Grenada's economy to grow by 3.9%, supported by, yes, tourism, but also by reconstruction and public investments. Madam Speaker, my first point is aviation and connectivity. Madam Speaker, airlines do not invest in destinations based on mere hope and feelings. They actually invest where there is demand. More people traveling means more flights and more airlines giving more opportunities for Grenadians. In 2025, Grenada signed an air service agreement with the state of Qatar, allowing unlimited passenger and cargo services between our two countries. That agreement demonstrates our commitment to expanding international connectivity. Visa-free access with Africa, Latin America, South America, Europe, and the Caribbean builds on that same vision by encouraging more business travelers, tourism, and investment and trade, as I said earlier. Madam Speaker, my second point is competitiveness. Grenada competes every single day with St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines for airlines and foreign investments. According to the World Bank, Grenada's economy is valued at approximately US $1.4 billion, compared to about $2.5 billion for St. Lucia and US $1.2 for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We cannot assume investors will just choose Grenada simply because we're the most beautiful, in which, in fact, we are. However, investors look for countries that are accessible and visa-free access. Visa-free access makes Grenada a more attractive destination for international conferences, regional headquarters, aviation partnerships, and foreign direct investments. As Minister for Responsibility, it is to ensure that the Maurice Bishop International Airport remains competitive and the Grenada continues to build on its global reach. Madam Speaker, my final point really is infrastructure. Government is already investing heavily in projects that are transforming our country today. Through the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, also known as UKCIF, we are rehabilitating major road networks in which most of us here see the works being done in real time, while strengthening climate resilience, of course. Through the Tourism Competitiveness Project, Madam Speaker, we have upgraded tourism sites like the rehabilitation of Fort George, just look at it, which is a multi-million-dollar infrastructure project funded by the World Bank. We are also continuing road rehabilitation projects across Grenada. We know better than infrastructure supports economic growth. Excuse me. Madam Speaker, infrastructure only delivers when people really use them. Better roads bring better commerce, better transport system attracts more investments, better partnerships create more opportunities. Visa-free access allows Grenada to attract specialized engineers also, aviation experts, transport planners, and infrastructure consultants who can work alongside our local professionals with transfer knowledge and strengthen our workforce. This is not about replacing Grenadians, Madam Speaker. It's really about building Grenada's capacity to deliver world-class infrastructure. Visa-free access, Madam Speaker, once again, is not necessarily about opening borders for everybody to come in. It's really about opening new markets, attracting new investments, strengthening our aviation sector will continue to say and create more opportunities for Grenadian people. For those reasons, Madam Speaker, I proudly support this motion and urge every member in this honorable house, whether you're on this side, that side, outside, south side, to just do the same. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. Andrews Southwest.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with your indulgence, of course, may I please seek permission to utilize quotation and dialect throughout my contribution as I direct this House from a realm of aspiration to the reality of governance.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. Madam Speaker, in the Caribbean, we often say, dance a yard before you dance abroad. In other words, before looking outward, you must ensure that your house is in order. Today, as parliamentary representative for the constituency of St. Andrews Southwest, my concern is simple. Before Grenada expands reciprocal visa-free travel, it must first demonstrate that it possesses the capacity to implement such a policy safely and effectively. Madam Speaker, this resolution shifts a greater burden of immigration screening onto Grenada's borders without demonstrating that our institutions possess the administrative infrastructure to manage it. Madam Speaker, the government promises enhanced immigration screening, intelligence sharing, information exchange, and so on and so forth. However, Madam Speaker, those fanciful assurances may sound reassuring, but national security is built on preparation, not promises. Furthermore, the International Organization for Migration explains that advanced passenger information and passenger name record systems strengthen border security by identifying persons of interest and combating serious crime. However, it also cautions that effective implementation remains a significant challenge for many states and depends upon appropriate national intelligence capacity. Appropriate, Madam Speaker. Yet, it was only last month, June 2026, that Grenada introduced the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill, establishing the legal framework for these systems and creating a dedicated passenger information unit. The government's own legislation demonstrates that enhanced screening requires specialized institutions, trained personnel, and sustained resources. So I ask through you, Madam Speaker, if Grenada is only now establishing the framework, how has the government satisfied this honorable House that the necessary operational readiness is already in place? We cannot legislate confidence into existence. My second concern, Madam Speaker, is that national security does not end when a visitor arrives on Grenadian shores. The government has failed to prove how it will monitor immigration compliance, investigate potential breaches of our immigration laws, or even ensure that these laws are carried out should arrivals increase. Earlier this year, Madam Speaker, Grenada introduced its electronic embarkation and disembarkation portal. This is undoubtedly progress. However, recording an arrival is not the same as ensuring the persons that are required to leave actually do so. Madam Speaker, according to the Grenada Tourism Authority, Grenada already processes hundreds of thousands of visitors annually, including more than 13,000 stay-over visitors during Spice Mass alone. Madam Speaker,
Every passport stamped is another responsibility assumed by the state. Yet, who will carry this responsibility? The Royal Grenada Police Force is authorized to maintain 1,025 sworn officers, but currently operates with approximately 940 active officers. These officers are already responsible for crime prevention, national security, and the list goes on. But the government has not demonstrated how these existing institutions will absorb additional immigration, enforcement responsibilities, and training, Madam Speaker, does not replace capacity, might I add. Nor has the government provided publicly available data on immigration overstays. If we cannot confidently tell this House how many people overstay today, Madam Speaker, how will we monitor more that will come tomorrow? Madam Speaker, let me be abundantly clear. The opposition does not oppose progress. We oppose unpreparedness. We reject implementing this policy before Grenada is ready to safeguard its borders, enforce its laws, and protect its people. Now, Madam Speaker, no responsible engineer. Madam Speaker, please permit me 1 more minute to wrap up my speech.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I was saying, no responsible engineer would allow heavier traffic onto a bridge without first ensuring that that bridge can hold the load. Likewise, no responsible government should expand reciprocal visa-free travel without first proving that Grenada's border infrastructure can withstand the load. Before we dance abroad, Madam Speaker, let's first dance a yard. Before we expand our borders, let us first strengthen them. Before we make promises to the world, let us ensure that we keep them right here in Grenada. For such reasons, Madam Speaker, I respectfully urge this Honourable House to reject the resolution. I thank you.
At this moment, we recognize the presence of Senator Seville Francis, who is sitting as a stranger in the gallery. Youth Parliamentarian for St. Patrick East.
Madam Speaker, permission to quote throughout my entire speech?
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, I am going to make an assumption which I believe will hold through for the entire government's Honourable House this afternoon. What is that assumption? We're all probably wondering what's for dinner later. Madam Speaker, as Caribbean people, food security is of utmost importance. And it is on this basis that I rise here today in full support of this resolution, not as the Minister for Agriculture.
Do you wish to start over?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, permission to quote throughout my speech?
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to make an assumption which I believe will hold true for everyone in this honorable house this afternoon. What is that assumption? We are all probably wondering what's for dinner later. Madam Speaker, as Caribbean people, food security is of utmost importance. And it is on this basis that I rise here today in full support of this resolution, not as Minister for Agriculture, and certainly not as someone who enjoys a good meal, but as someone who firmly believes that the future of our farmers is the future of our nation. Madam Speaker, this resolution is not merely about reciprocal visa-free travel. It's about creating opportunity to. It's about creating opportunity.
to improve Grenada agriculture while protecting our nation's security, sovereignty, and economic future. Madam Speaker, allow me to illustrate this resolution. Reciprocal visa-free travel is like a bridge built between two villages. The bridge does not force anyone to cross. It simply creates the opportunity. Without that bridge, people remain isolated, ideas remain separated, and e-commerce remains limited. Madam Speaker, my first point is that reciprocal visa-free agreements expand markets while strengthening agricultural innovation. Grenada has long earned international recognition as a spice isle of the Caribbean. Our cocoa, our nutmeg, our agro-processed products are respected throughout the world for their exceptional quality. Success today in the global markets is not based on world-class products alone. It's about it is based on the ability to access those markets For instance, Madam Speaker, Ghana, one of the world's leading cocoa producers, has built a globally recognized industry through research, farmer education, and international collaboration and value-added production. Grenada already possesses premium cocoa and an expanding chocolate factory. Through stronger international partnerships, exchange knowledge, and investments, we too can rise up in the agricultural value chain. Madam Speaker, my second point is that when agriculture grows, the entire Grenadian economy grows with it. Agriculture does not exist alone in isolation. It supports tourism, transportation, manufacturing, and agro-processing small businesses throughout our nation. Today, we are not sending sailing ships across our oceans. We are creating modern pathways for our agricultural sector. The future of agriculture should be grown in our fields and sold in global markets. Madam Speaker, some may argue that farmers does not need reciprocal visa-free travel. Respectfully, agriculture today extends far beyond the farmer's gate. Farmers do not travel weekly, but exporters, researchers, agricultural extension officers, and corporate leaders certainly do. Modern agriculture depends on international partnership, knowledge exchange, and access to markets. To suggest otherwise is to ignore the realities of today's global agricultural economy. Madam Speaker, another argument may be that there is no guarantee that exports will increase. Madam Speaker, there is no responsible government that can guarantee success, no policy that automatically creates prosperity. However, good policy remains to create opportunity. This resolution does not promise automatic growth. It removes unnecessary barriers, strengthens international connections, and positions Grenada to take advantage of those opportunities that already exist. Madam Speaker, it is important that we remain guided by evidence. The evidence presented by the United Nations, the Agriculture and Food Organization, and the World Bank, they do not suggest automatic increase in agricultural export, nor does this resolution. What it does is remove unnecessary barriers and create greater opportunities for international cooperation, improved markets, and exchange and trade relationships, while preserving our nation's security, sovereignty, and maintaining the integrity of our borders. Madam Speaker, when we leave this honorable house later today and gather around our dinner tables, let us remember that every meal, Madam Speaker, 1 minute to wrap up my speech.
Permission granted.
Let us remember that every meal begins with a farmer. On this note, Madam Speaker, I leave this honorable house with this statement. We are not asking the world to feed Grenada. We are preparing Grenada to help feed the world. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. David South.
I rise this evening as constituency representative for St. David South to oppose this resolution in its current form. Not because I reject Africa, Latin America, or any other region proposed in this framework. I do not oppose international cooperation. Grenada must engage with the world. But this government has brought before this House an idea that seems to have come to them like Nebuchadnezzar upon his bed at night. They rose up, gathered their wise men, and came running to this House, demanding support for a midnight dream, asking us to approve their vision today and worry about the details tomorrow. But we as the opposition stand here today as Daniel to tell this government plainly, it don't work so. You see, Madam Speaker, policies with international partners require evidence and enforceable protections, not hope alone. And it is in this regard that this government has failed. Madam Speaker, my first concern is that Grenada lacks the legal safeguards necessary to support this resolution, and that this government is putting the cart before the horse by seeking visa access approval before establishing the protections required to implement it responsibly. Madam Speaker, we say the process must come first because it determines who benefits, what access is granted, and what risks Grenada may face. The World Trade Organization's Trade Policy Review of Grenada has highlighted the absence of a comprehensive domestic competition framework. Why does that matter? Because if visa facilitation is to indeed increase investment and commercial activity, as is detailed in this resolution, larger foreign entities with greater resources will enter our markets. And without strong safeguards, we expose ourselves to unfair competition such as predatory pricing, profit repatriation, displacement of local small businesses, and the possibility of foreign control of key sectors. Trinidad, Jamaica, and Barbados, our CARICOM neighbors, understanding this reality, have developed stronger competition frameworks, while Grenada still has work to do. Madam Speaker, if we want to roll with the big boys, we must first build the foundations that allow us to compete. Madam Speaker, our next major concern is whether this government has prepared our people to benefit from this national visa access opportunity. This government has been highlighting the word reciprocity. It sounds fair, but fairness on paper does not always mean fairness in reality. The countries we seek to engage have larger labor pools, specialized skills, and stronger preparation systems. Grenada, by comparison, faces skill set shortages in various sectors. This, according to the Grenada National Training Agency, as well as official government statements. So I ask this government, what preparation has been done for Grenadian workers? Because someone from Guave, Victoria, or Sates cannot simply wake up tomorrow morning and enter another market without the skills, training, and tools necessary to compete. Madam Speaker, this is not about closing doors. This is about making sure that Grenadians are ready when those doors fling open. Madam Speaker, let us not forget that preparation also requires enforcement. I am well acquainted with our labor laws, but I am also aware that gaps remain in our framework, and it is within these gaps that our workers become vulnerable. You see, according to the ILO, International Labour Organization, Grenada's labor market remains ongoing, but concerns persist regarding delays in our system. Let me illustrate why this gap matters to this resolution. Imagine facing a dispute with a foreign employer, taking years to be heard. You wait, unemployed, with no interim relief, mounting legal costs, and zero interest on delayed compensation. When the case is called, the company easily writes off a capped $5,000 penalty out of the profits they already made, while you, the local Permission, can I have 1 minute to complete my speech?
Permission granted.
While you, the local worker, pays with their livelihood. Madam Speaker, this is not an imaginary situation. This is a reality under our current law, and it shows where our legislation must be urgently strengthened. In conclusion, Grenada cannot afford to open new doors, ensuring that the laws, systems, and protections are strong enough to safeguard our people, because opportunity without preparation becomes vulnerability. I thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for the Tongue of St. George.
A pleasant evening, Madam Speaker, members of the gallery, honorable members of the House. It's a great honor to be here today as your Minister for Education. I rise today in full support of this resolution to expand reciprocal visa-free travel agreements with strategically partnering countries. Madam Speaker, before I begin, I would like to ask a simple question to all who have ears, through you, Madam Speaker. If knowledge has no borders, why should opportunity have so many? Madam Speaker, our students dream of becoming doctors, engineers, teachers, entrepreneurs, and innovators. But some of them have blockages when traveling to other countries to study. Madam Speaker, today we have the opportunity to make those dreams accessible by creating less barrier to our students. Madam Speaker, education has always been the foundation upon which great nations have been built. This resolution is not merely this resolution is not merely about traveling without a visa. It is about making the pathway more accessible for learning, innovation, and national development. Madam Speaker, I will focus on two key areas today in my speech: student exchange programs, and research collaboration. Firstly, Madam Speaker, reciprocal visa-free travel agreements will make it easier for Grenadian students and teachers to travel freely with ease, to participate in exchange programs and internships and academic partnerships with universities across Africa, Latin America, and other partner nations. These opportunities expose our students and teachers to new teaching methods, technologies, and cultures while building leadership skills and other perspectives. UNESCO also notes that because many Caribbean states have small population, they cannot offer every program domestically, and as a result, many students study abroad to access specialized degrees. Madam Speaker, UNESCO reports that the amount of students studying in Latin America and the Caribbean has increased from 24% to 43% over the past 2 decades. This tells us one thing: educational mobility is becoming increasingly important in our region. Madam Speaker, according to UNESCO, also more than 4.6 million students have studied abroad worldwide in 2021, demonstrating that international mobility has become an essential part for higher education. Madam Speaker, for a small island like Grenada, reciprocal visa-free travel can reduce barriers to exchange programs, research partnerships, and specialized training that may not be available at home. The OECS Skills and Innovation Project, SKIP, is investing US $36 million to strengthen post-secondary education, technical training, innovation, and youth employment across the OECS. Madam Speaker, the project specifically aims to prepare young people for future jobs in our region and regional collaboration. Madam Speaker, our own OECS recognizes that education must prepare young people for the global economy. Madam Speaker, we should never fear educating our people. We should fear denying them the opportunity to grow. Madam Speaker, this resolution also recognizes that educational cooperation must exist alongside responsible governance. Madam Speaker, cooperation must exist alongside responsible governance. Madam Speaker, it calls for proper immigration screening, intelligence sharing, and broader security cooperation. Madam Speaker, a minute and a half to close my speech.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this demonstrates that educational opportunity and national security can work hand in hand. Secondly, research collaboration. Madam Speaker, the challenges facing our nation cannot always be solved alone. Climate change, food security, public health, and disaster preparedness and sustainable development require international cooperation. Visa-free travel encourages researchers, lecturers, and university students to collaborate across borders. Grenadian academics can work alongside experts and other countries, sharing our conducting research and addressing common regional challenges. Madam Speaker, as a small island developing state, Grenada has much to offer to global conversations on climate resilience and sustainable development. Madam Speaker, likewise, we have much to learn from nations that have successfully implemented innovative education solutions. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. George Northeast.
Madam Speaker, honorable members of the House, and strangers in our gallery, today I come before you not just in my parliamentary capacity, but in one as a Grenadian, a proud member of the diaspora who has fought tooth and nail to find her place in this blessed great country. Madam Speaker, please understand, when I critique, it is not coming from a place of malice, but of a place of professional and personal experience and not wishful assumptions. The continents referenced in the resolution, namely the Caribbean, North America, Africa, Europe, and Latin America, have a lot of cultural and historic similarities to us. But by what metric would we be grading them? By what metric are we deciding who to partner with? We have heard a lot of optimism, Madam Speaker, but we are lacking grounded realities and executions. Madam Speaker, my mind is flooded with questions that, as expected, are unanswered by our government, such as, how will we measure the cost-benefit of such a venture? The happiness index? How do we protect our nation's limited resources whilst maximizing the benefit that we receive from these nations? And thirdly, what systems and protections have been implemented or already exist to even allow us to reasonably start this conversation? Not proposed, but implemented. Madam Speaker, naturally I advocate for open borders. Reciprocal visa-free entry theoretically is a great step in that direction. However, when introducing any new initiative, we must first consider the practicality of implementing such a monumental change. We may be willing, but are we prepared? Have we done the appropriate feasibility studies? What does the data suggest? Madam Speaker, I can answer that. Let me save the government some time and what appears to be very limited research resources. Our data system shows that we are already considerably strained and our ministries are already under-resourced. We have a lack of capacity to deal with the immediate upsurge in data processing and management. With an already strained public service, how can we expect them to reasonably manage the bulk of governance and administration work that would arise? Our government claimed we already have the systems in place. However, earlier this year, we already experienced delays when we nationally converted to an online tax system, the GTax system, which was following a regional template, mind you. So imagine the nationally felt issues that arose by just instituting a change that has already been outlined for us. Each visa agreement would be bespoke, Madam Speaker, mirroring the uniqueness of our ally relationships. Again, I ask you, who is footing the cost? Where is the human resource? Not potential resource, but active and efficient current human resource. I am fully committed to the development of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, but at what cost? Where are the trained and experienced diplomats who would be required to lead and not just support these agreements? The lack of diplomatic missions Grenada has in comparison to the amount of visa-free agreements, meaning we do not benefit from these agreements as we cannot implement them. The dangers of hyperdevelopment in developing countries is often equated to modern-day colonialization or neocolonialization. Madam Speaker, we must ask ourselves, why is the government so adamant to give other states access to our island? Madam Speaker, we are aware of the history and the reality of what happens in these negotiation rooms. The agreements look great on paper, but in practicality, the interests of our 117,000 strong population are bulldozed by these larger developed states. Madam Speaker, in consideration of what I have been hearing this evening by my friends on the other side, we may have to remix a familiar saying. Permission to paraphrase colloquially. Forward never, backward ever. Opening the borders would essentially catapult us into a global market economy that Grenada currently does not have the infrastructure to support, let alone to regulate, contributing further to a wealth gap, causing locals to become secondary citizens in their own countries, reaffirming classism, which already can be seen domestically between our SGU students and our expats in comparison to our locals. Madam Speaker, permission for 1 more minute to wrap up my speech.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, how would we support this shift? With the rise in virtual economies, such as influencer culture or even streaming, for instance, what unions would they be represented by? What policies can they stand behind? With Grenadians already suffering due to the rapid cost of living increase, how would we plug the gap? I ask you, can NIS afford to pay the welfare payments to close the gap? Madam Speaker, to close, although I support the idea of opening up our borders, I cannot feasibly agree that we are in a position to safely institute reciprocal visa agreements this year, let alone today. We cannot put the cart before the horse. We must first focus on developing our systems and human resource. Then we can start the reciprocal visa discourse. I encourage the government to regroup and to reconsider. And let us revisit this conversation not only and only when the appropriate preparatory work has been completed. Madam Speaker, for these reasons and for those so eloquently posed by my colleagues earlier.
Honourable Member, your time is up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. Andrew Northwest.
Madam Speaker, after listening carefully to today's debate, one thing has become abundantly clear. The opposition has asked this honorable House to fear possibilities while the government has stated facts, policies, and practical solutions. My colleagues have already explained the economic and diplomatic benefits of reciprocal visa-free. I now rise from the perspective of legal, labor, and consumer affairs.
This resolution deserves the full support of this House. Madam Speaker, permission to use Grenadian dialect throughout my speech.
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, so wait now. When we open our doors, all laws disappear. Visa-free travel does not weaken Grenada's legal framework. Visa waivers do not mean the repeal of Grenadians' laws. A reciprocal visa-free agreement simply removes the requirement to obtain a visa before traveling. It does not suspend Grenada's Immigration Act or remove the authority of other relevant authorities in Grenada. Every traveler who enters Grenada, Madam Speaker, remains subject to the laws of Grenada from the moment they arrive to the moment they leave. Grenada's sovereignty and constitution are not in breach. Madam Speaker, removing a visa requirement is like removing the lock from the front gate of a secured compound. The gates may open more easily, but the security guards, the cameras, the walls remain firmly in place. Grenada's laws are those guards, Madam Speaker. They do not disappear simply because one lock has been removed. That is legal reality. If the opposition believe otherwise, I respectfully invite them to identify a single act that this parliament that the resolution repeals. They cannot, because none does. Madam Speaker, as minister also responsible for labor, let us separate lawful entry into Grenada with lawful employment, because they are not the same legal process. Under the Foreign Nationals and Commonwealth Citizen Employment Act, every foreign national wishing to work in Grenada must first obtain a valid work permit. Employers must continue to comply with Grenada's labor laws before employing any foreign workers. Therefore, when the opposition claims that reciprocal visa-free travel means foreigners will simply come in and take Grenadian jobs, that argument cannot withstand legal scrutiny. Perhaps they have confused lawful travel with lawful employment. The law certainly does not. Madam Speaker, responsible labor mobility is not about replacing Grenadians. It is about addressing genuine skill shortages while continuing to invest in our own people so that in time, Grenadians are equipped to fill those positions themselves. That is not weakening our workforce, Madam Speaker. That is strengthening it. Madam Speaker, this is not an experiment. Across CARICOM countries such as Barbados, St. Lucia, and Dominica participate in reciprocal visa-free travel while continuing to enforce their immigration laws, labor legislation, and consumer protection measures every single day. Their borders did not collapse. Their labor laws did not disappear. Their legal system continued to function exactly as intended. Grenada is not entering uncharted territory. We are following a proven regional approach. Madam Speaker, this opposition has built much of its case on one phrase: what if? What if jobs disappear? What if criminals arrive? And what if our institutions fail? But legislation cannot be built on speculation. It must be built on evidence. And today, the opposition has produced very little of it. This government trusts our immigration officers to protect our borders. It trusts our labor department to enforce our employment laws. It relies on the vigilance of our custom officers, and the professionalism of our Royal Grenada Police Force. Above all, Madam Speaker, this resolution stands firmly behind the rule of law. Madam Speaker, Grenadians have a choice. We can allow fear to shape our future.
Honorable member, your time is up.
Madam Speaker, allow me 5 minutes to wrap up my speech.
Honorable member, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We can allow fear to shape our future, or we can embrace opportunity while standing firmly in the strength of our laws. Strong nations are not built by closing doors. They are built by opening them, Madam Speaker, but not just opening them wisely. The rule of law was never designed to fear opportunity. It was designed to regulate it, manage it, protect our people of Grenada while allowing our nation to prosper. Today, this House is not choosing between law and opportunity, Madam Speaker. We are choosing both. And for those reasons, Madam Speaker, I proudly support this resolution. I thank you.
Youth Parliamentarian for St. Andrew Northeast.
Imagine there are two businesses. Both offer similar services. The interior is spotless. The food is exceptional, and the staff are warm and ready to welcome you. One business asks you to fill out a short survey, ensures you have no weapons, and allows you to enter. The other business places a huge padlock on the gate and charges exorbitant entry fees. Before you enter, you must fill out forms, wait weeks for approval, and maybe they will let you in. And if they decide to deny you entry, which they can, there is no refund for your time or resources spent. Personally, I would choose the first option. No responsible business operates this way, yet that is exactly what visa restrictions can do to an economy. As Minister for Finance, I support this motion because good financial management is about creating and promoting the conditions that allow our economy to grow. First on my agenda is increased economic activity. Every tourist that comes to Grenada spends money in Grenada long before they have touched Grenada's soil. They purchase airline tickets, they book accommodations, they book taxis and visit attractions, etc. Hotels then purchase vegetables from our farmers, restaurants purchase seafood from our fishermen, taxi drivers earn more, and retail stores sell more. This is what economists call the multiplier effect. According to Nobel Prize-winning economist, and permission to quote, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
Open quote. One man's spending becomes another man's income. The opposition cited that there is no direct correlation between economic growth and visa-free access. However,
Honorable Member, are you still quoting?
End quote, sorry. The opposition cited that there is no direct correlation between economic growth and visa-free access. However, after granting visa-free access to over 100 countries, Qatar saw an increase of $15 billion in their GDP, according to the chairman of Qatar Tourism. When we make Grenada easier to visit, we increase the probability that more travelers choose our shores over competing destinations. Grenada's government revenue increases through VAT collection, as well as airport fees, airline passenger taxes, customs duties, and corporate income taxes. More employment increases income tax and NIS contributions. Greater demand for infrastructure stimulates the construction industry, generating revenue through corporate taxes, import duties, and building materials. These inflows ultimately provide government with greater fiscal capacity to invest in other sectors such as agriculture and education. Because we did not buy Grenada fully furnished, we have to build it. Secondly, I will speak about an increase in international trade and FDI. Madam Speaker, cooperation is not something new to Grenada or the region. Organizations such as CARICOM and the OECS have existed for years and facilitated strengthened trade, labor mobility, and regional development. This resolution simply extends this principle beyond our region to the 195 countries in the world. The World Bank estimates that implementing trade facilitation measures can reduce trade costs by an average of 14.3% globally, with developing countries like Grenada standing to benefit the most. Existing linkages significantly reduce transaction costs, lower trade barriers, and foster long-term global supply chains. The OECD FDI Regulatory Framework Index explicitly identifies restrictions on key foreign personnel as a major statutory barrier that deters foreign capital. How can we expect investors invest millions into Grenada when the first challenge is getting here?
By implementing visa-free access to specific countries, we build stronger diplomatic relationships that will encourage collaboration in trade, infrastructure, education, and technology. Because, Madam Speaker, I understand that countries invest in and trade with countries they can trust. The opposition may ask, how will we fund these enhanced controls? The answer is fiscal prudence, combining the additional economic activity that this very resolution generates with phased implementation. I'm sure most parents would tell you they did not have all the resources to grow their child to 18 years old when they had the child. We will evaluate agreements where economic return is highest before expanding further. Phased implementation. So yes, there will be implementation costs, but those costs are manageable, phased, and justified because they provide economic growth.
Honorable member, your time is up.
May I have 1 minute to wrap up?
Permission granted.
Madam Speaker, finance is not about saying no to every opportunity because there is a cost. Rather, it identifies investments that generate greater returns than they cost. This motion does exactly that. It strengthens diplomacy, encourages investment, increases tourism, expands trade, grows government revenue, and does so while maintaining broad border security, ensuring that our eagle lands on time and safely. So I leave this house with one question. If Grenada wishes to compete in a global economy, why should we make it harder rather than easier? To any learned individual, I'm sure the answer is obvious. Thank you.
Are there any other contributions to the House?
Madam Speaker, I know of at least 5 members on the opposition side who does not even hold a passport. So, Madam Speaker, on what basis and credibility can they stand to oppose this resolution? Order. We are a bit confused. We would like to know if you are in support or if you are against. Your speeches are quite contradictory. Madam Speaker, this rebuttal is not even necessary, as my members and I have already answered all of their questions. I mean, come on, couldn't you guys have challenged us a little? Not even a little bit? Also, Madam Speaker, please do not forget to inform the members of their decorum in this honorable house, as obscenities are not allowed. Oh, and the opposition leader mentioned some statistic. I would just like to clear that up. It is 95%. Thank you. Please state the facts in this honorable house. Madam Speaker, the opposition member for tourism mentioned we should not open doors until the house is fully furnished. But how do you expect us to furnish this house if we never allow anyone through the door? We cannot wait for perfection before pursuing progress. The opposition argues that Grenada is already accessible to many countries without visas, so there is no relationship between visa facilitation and economic growth. But that is like saying because a shop already has customers, it shouldn't advertise more. By the way, I urge the honorable members to keep up to date with Grenada, because the Grenada basketball team has recently traveled to the UK for a basketball competition. Minister, Opposition for Youth and Sports. Madam Speaker, this opposition has mistaken speculation for substance, and it is my duty as Prime Minister to correct the record. So I ask this: what is a visa, and what does reciprocal visa-free travel agreements really mean? I think you guys are a bit confused. For the opposition's sake, I'll explain it as simply as I possibly can. A visa is permission to enter another country. That's all it is. Permission. Think of it like this. If you visit your friend's house, can you ask to come over? If they say yes, then you can visit. But that does not mean you can move in. Madam Speaker, you cannot stay forever. Ignore the rules of their house. It just means that you have been given permission. Madam Speaker, a visa works the same way, by the way. Now, what does reciprocal visa-free travel really mean? It means that we do not have to ask for permission before we travel, and they do not have to ask for permission before they travel to our country. Visa-free does not mean rule-free. People will still go through immigration, their passports are still checked, they can still be questioned, and if immigration believes anyone is a risk, they can still be refused. So, Madam Speaker, the opposition is acting as though visa-free travel means anyone can walk into our country, Grenada, without checks. That is simply not true. Madam Speaker, more visitors mean more jobs, more income for families, and more tax revenue for the government to reinvest in healthcare, education, and infrastructure. I will not speak anymore to your redundant questions or your rebuttals, as all of my members have already answered them. Madam Speaker, I would just like to say this to the opposition member for Foreign Affairs. If visa liberalization was as dangerous as the opposition would have us believe, then why have Barbados been leading the way? Barbados has deliberately used visa liberalization as a tool to grow its economy, not weaken its borders. Take, for example, the Barbados Welcome Stamp, introduced in 2020. It allowed remote workers from around the world to live and work in Barbados for up to a year while continuing their overseas employment. Madam Speaker, did Barbados lose control of their borders? No. Did it abandon national security? Absolutely not. Madam Speaker, Barbados showed the region that opening the doors to legitimate travelers can strengthen an economy while protecting national security. If our Caribbean neighbors can achieve that balance, why can Grenada not do the same? Madam Speaker, the opposition has spent this debate and wasted our time telling us what could go wrong. This government has spent this entire debate showing Grenada and its citizens that everything can go right. And history has never been changed by those who only pointed the problem. Madam Speaker, it was changed through bravery and enough time to create solutions. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas Grenada remains committed to the principles of regional integration through its membership in the Caribbean Community and the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, both of which promote the progressive facilitation of the free movement of people, skills, goods, and services within the region. And whereas Grenada shares deep historical, ancestral, cultural, and diplomatic ties with the country throughout the Caribbean, Africa, Latin America, European, and other regions, and has an interest in strengthening these relationships. And whereas expanding opportunities for international travel can foster strong diplomatic relations, increase tourism, increase the population, facilitate trade and investment, promote educational exchange, and encourage innovation and sustainable economic growth. Be it resolved that the government of Grenada develop and implement a national visa facilitation policy aimed at expanding reciprocal visa-free travel arrangements with strategically selected partner countries in Africa, Latin America, and other strategically identified regions that share significant historical, cultural, educational, economic, and diplomatic ties in furtherance of Grenada's national policy objectives. Be it also resolved that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs establish clear criteria for the negotiation of reciprocal visa-free arrangements, taking into account national security, immigration, management, economic impact, protection of Grenadian citizens abroad, and Grenada's foreign policy priorities. Be it further resolved that all reciprocal visa-free arrangements be supported by enhanced immigration, screening, intelligence sharing, information exchange, border security, cooperation, and law enforcement collaboration to ensure the continued safety and security of Grenada and its citizens. As many as are in favor that the resolution be agreed, say aye.
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 Those of the contrary, say nay.
Nay.
I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The resolution has been agreed.
Adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House be adjourned sine die.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the Honorable House stands adjourned sine die. At this time, I invite
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for attending the Youth Parliament Parish Debate for the Parish of St. George. I now invite Senator the Honorable Sybil Francis to give some closing remarks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Everybody can hear me? All right. Good evening. And no, I am not Senator Sybil Francis Lewis. She will join you shortly. But before she comes up to address you, I just wanted to say a few brief remarks. So I am Carleen Perriman, and I am the Coordinator of Youth within the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And before I continue, I want the members of the gallery to please, and Madam Speaker, please allow me to ask the members of the gallery to give our debaters here this evening a resounding round of applause. . They often say that public speaking is in the top 3, if not the top biggest fear of human beings. And for you guys to be on this very public platform, very live, and to be giving such remarkable speeches on such an important and relevant topic, I honestly think that you deserve to give yourself a table knock for that. All right. So good evening, Senator Francis Lewis. Good evening to all our specially invited guests, to our national youth parliamentarians, to the parliamentarians for the parish level in St. George. Good evening to all our viewers and everybody in this room. Good evening. The Ministry of Youth and Sports is always delighted to host events like these, to host Youth Parliament. Why? As a former youth parliamentarian myself, and as a former youth parliamentarian who found a voice in rooms like these, it is definitely something that I hold dear, and it's something that I really and truly trust that you guys would understand the importance of your voice. Oftentimes we call the youth parliament sitting a mock exercise. And over the past 2 years, the Ministry of Youth and Sports has worked extremely hard to remove that stigma, to remove that name of mock, or that title of a mock sitting behind the youth parliament name and brand. We have since introduced national youth election to this particular program. So if you did not know, and persons who are listening, if you did not know, the top 2 persons from each of the constituency in St. George right here, they will be coming to you soon once you're between the ages of 16 to 35, asking you to vote for them at the national youth election, and that will be the 2nd cohort. So that should be sometime in December. These young persons, within the next couple of weeks, they will start their campaign period where they will be campaigning within their constituencies, asking for your vote. What does that mean for them once you vote for them and they become successful? For the next 2 years, they would be considered the National Youth Parliament for their constituency. Now, what does that mean for them now that they are a National Youth Parliamentarian? 1, the work begins. They are now expected to go back within their constituencies to find out what are the issues affecting young people within their constituencies, what are some of the strengths, what are some of the opportunities that are left on the table and not being addressed in this present context. And they are going to be the voice for their constituency young people within the youth parliament space, or within the parliament space, because the youth parliaments, they debate 4 times a year, every quarter, at the Houses of Parliament. These young persons are expected to, at the end of each sitting, they're expected to pull together their resources or the information from both the government and the opposition and create a paper which they will present to the Clerk of Parliament, which will then be shared with the members of Parliament for their consideration based on the bill that they have been debating on. These young persons will also have access to $5,000 worth of grant every year for community projects and community initiatives. They will also have a stipend that they are expected to use in terms of their preparation for the different debates, but not only that, for additional work that they're expected to do within their communities, for places that they're expected to show up at, for anything that they are passionate about, that they want to help address. They would have that stipend that will go towards that. These young persons will not only represent us nationally, but also regionally and internationally. There is a lot more expectations for them, but I do understand that it is getting late. So I am asking you to stay tuned to the Ministry of Youth and Sports, our Instagram pages. If you're not following, you need to open up your apps right now and follow at MOYGND on Instagram and Ministry of Youth and Sports on Facebook. And you follow to find out exactly what the National Youth Parliamentarian Program is about. Follow to see what our National Youth Parliamentarians, some of them sitting in the gallery right now, what they have been up to. And just essentially to follow what the programs and the projects that the Ministry of Youth and Sports have so that you can inform your constituents, because you are now going to be an ambassador of the Ministry of Youth and Sports in terms of promoting programs and projects that we have, because part of your mandate, even as parish level debaters, parliamentarians, is to definitely let the young people within your constituency know what opportunities are available to them. So once again, before I leave and I turn the mic over to Senator Civil Francis Lewis, I want to applaud you for your presentations here this afternoon. For many of you may not know that these young persons have been preparing for this for the past couple months, and they've been doing such a tremendous job. So for your commitment towards that, the commitments of your facilitators and everybody who made this possible, the staff at the Ministry of Youth and Sports, all our partners, we say thank you. And we look forward to seeing you guys at the next phase of the National Youth Parliament program. Thank you.
Pleasant evening to all. Madam Speaker, please allow me to adopt the protocol established. Before I proceed, I want to do something very special. I would really appreciate if the facilitator for this Parliament sit-in can stand and be recognized. And I want the strangers in the gallery and the youth parliamentarians to help me with recognizing her. A lot of times we see the finished product, but we don't see the work that goes into grooming and getting our young people to where they are today. And would you agree with me when I say they were remarkable? I agree. I've also had the fortunate pleasure of visiting them. Hi, guys. And working with them. And I can tell you that after that session was supposed to end about 6:30, and we ended about 8. They did not want to leave. The bus was waiting, and guess what happened thereafter? I'm not even gonna say how many of them, they came to my office the following day, and days after that. And it shows that, one, they're on the right path. It shows that they are willing to learn, grow, and to lead. And in today's society, it's something that we're seeing a lot of it diminishing, and to have that level of interest in national leadership is very much commendable. I am so proud of you guys. I have seen the work that you've put into it, and my memories jog to the session that we had together where I said to you that being a parliamentarian is not just about standing and speaking in the House of Parliament, but it's about listening. It's about courage to stand and to oppose. It's about taking the courage and the authority to stand for something that you believe is right. And more importantly, putting in the research, something that was very evident here today. So I am really proud of you guys. Thank you so much for participating in one of the Ministry of Youth and Sports very important initiatives, something that I am also proud to be a product of, and I've shared that with you guys. I've came from the Paris sit-in, went on to the national sit-in, and now I am in a position of national leadership. And as I've said to you before, and I'm gonna remind you, you don't have to be a leader by just being a parliamentarian. You are naturally leaders. The fact that you are taking the initiative to be better and to do better and to build a society. We're living in a very difficult time where the world can be cruel, where it pays to be kind, where it pays to stand up for things that when the crowd is going one direction, but you know better, it takes real leadership to stand. Just take one person to be that example, to stand and say, no, we are going the wrong way. And it doesn't matter if you're on the opposition or whether you're on the government. What is most important is believing that Grenada and our society comes first and taking the lead to ensure that we're all going in the right direction. Again, congratulations. I am super proud of you guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from you now that the Paris sit-in is over. Even though you have not been selected to move on to the national level, one of the things that I reminded you about is that you are all ambassadors regardless. And the opportunities are going to come. and I expect you to take full advantage of those opportunities. And in a world, I want you to say it with me, in a world where you can choose to be anything, choose to be. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
With protocol already established, good evening all. As we conclude today's sitting, it is my privilege to deliver this vote of thanks on behalf of all participants. First, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to the principal and staff of the Grenada Boys Secondary School for graciously facilitating our initial sessions and today's sitting. Thank you for providing us with a welcoming environment in which we could learn, prepare, and participate in this youth parliament. A sincere appreciation goes to the Ministry of Infrastructure for accommodating our sessions 3 times each week in your conference room, and to the Ministry of Youth for your continued investment in youth development and civic engagement. Programs such as these play an invaluable role in preparing the next generation of leaders. To our head facilitator, Dr. Tessa Sincere, thank you for your vision, leadership, and commitment to making this program a reality. To our presenters, Mr. Jeremy Baker, Senator the Honorable Civil Francis Lewis, and the Honorable Philip Telesford, thank you for sharing your knowledge, experience, and practical insight into governance and parliamentary procedure. Your presentations challenged us to think critically and to appreciate the responsibility that accompanies public office. I also wish to extend sincere appreciation to the youth parliamentarians, Mr. Jonathan Mitchell and Prime Minister Joshua Andel. Thank you for taking the time to mentor us, answer our questions, and share practical advice drawn from your own parliamentary experiences. Your encouragement has been greatly appreciated. To our coordinators, Ms. Carleen Perryman, Ms. Janelle Edwards, and our youth officers, Ms. Diane and Ms. Kaya, thank you for your outstanding coordination, encouragement, and constant support behind the scenes. Your hard work ensures that every aspect of this program runs smoothly. We also express our greatest appreciation to our drivers, Mr. Jeffrey Cyrus and Mr. Alan Gibbs, for transporting us safely throughout the program, and to our caterers, So Delicious Restaurant and Bar, Rawl and Liz Catering, Tropical Catering, Miss Natasha Joseph, and Miss Louisa, for keeping us well nourished during our many sessions. Your contributions may have taken place behind the scenes, but they were essential to the success of this program. A very, very special thank you goes out to our facilitator, Ms. Aaliyah Williams. Your passion, your patience, and unwavering commitment guided us every step of the way. Beyond parliamentary procedure, you taught us valuable lessons about leadership, governance, and emotional intelligence that will remain with us long after today's sitting. To my fellow youth parliamentarians on both the government and opposition benches, thank you for your dedication, preparation, and respectful engagement throughout this experience. Healthy democracy depends upon informed debate, and each of you contributed to making today's sitting meaningful. To Madam Speaker, thank you for presiding over today's proceedings with fairness, professionalism, and impartiality. Thank you to our 2 clerks, Symphony Lord and Chanel Simon, for their accurate timekeeping. To our sergeants at arms, thank you so very much for maintaining order within our honorable house today. Finally, to the judges, our media team, members of the gallery, and everyone joining us here online, thank you for supporting youth participation in democracy. Your presence and encouragement have made today's sitting all the more memorable. On behalf of all participants, thank you to everyone who invested your time, resources, and expertise in making this youth parliament a success. We are sincerely grateful. Thank you once again.
Honorable members, I would also like to say that I'm very proud of you because you're all future leaders, and thank you especially for maintaining order in the House. Honorable members, the question is that this honorable House stands adjourned, sine die. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those of the contrary say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The business of this youth parliament of the parish of St. George stands adjourned, sine die.
Everyone, hi. So we do have